It wasn't the first warning. When George S. Patton crossed the line again, Dwight D. Eisenhower didn't explode. He sighed and said just 4 words. "Not again, George." Those words weren't anger. They were exhaustion. And behind them was a decision that could end Patton's command and change the course of the war. What Eisenhower said next was never meant for the public, but Patton knew exactly what it meant. April 1945. The war in Europe is nearly over. Germany is collapsing. Soviet forces are closing in from the east. And General George S. Patton Jr. has just done something that could have ended his career in an instant. He's made a public statement that embarrasses the Supreme Commander in front of the entire world. Not just any embarrassment. Political dynamite. The kind that gets generals court-martialed. The kind that gets careers ended. Eisenhower doesn't lose his temper often. Those who knew him knew this. But when Patton's words reached his desk that morning, something shifted. Not rage. Something colder. Something worse. Strategic calculation. Because this wasn't the first time Patton had crossed a line, and Eisenhower was running out of patience. But before we get to what Patton said, you need to understand the relationship between these two men, because it wasn't simple. It wasn't the comfortable command relationship between 2 officers. It was friction, constant, electric, dangerous friction. And by April 1945, that friction was about to ignite. November 1942, North Africa. Operation Torch, the first major American offensive against Nazi Germany. Patton is a division commander. Eisenhower is beginning to build a machine that will win the war. They meet for the first time in combat conditions. Eisenhower sees something immediately. Patton is a fighter, genuinely fearless, loves war in a way most men don't, doesn't think about consequences, just thinks about victory, doesn't hesitate, doesn't second-guess, just attacks. Eisenhower promotes him, sees past the eccentricity, the pearl-handled pistols, the riding boots, the theatrical speeches about blood and guts, sees the real thing underneath, a general who will drive men forward when other generals would stop and consolidate. But there's a problem. The same traits that make Patton brilliant in battle make him dangerous in politics. He doesn't understand boundaries. Doesn't respect the careful calculus of alliance politics, doesn't care what the British think, doesn't care what the press thinks, doesn't care what the American public thinks. He just cares about winning. And Eisenhower has to manage all of that. May 1943. Sicily. Patton is given command of 7th Army. He's competing against Montgomery. Both are racing across the island. Both want the glory of taking Palermo first. Patton wins. Takes the city, calls Eisenhower. "Listen, sir, we got Palermo." The American press loves it. Banner headlines. Patton leads American army to victory. But there's a problem. Patton slaps a soldier. Actually slaps him. The soldier is hospitalized with shell shock. Patton thinks he's coddling weakness. Thinks the slap will toughen him up. Thinks it's leadership. It's assault. Word gets out. American newspapers explode. This is disgraceful. Patton is unfit. Court-martial him. Eisenhower gets caught between 2 impossible choices. The American public is outraged. Congress is demanding action. But removing Patton also means losing one of his best generals. Means losing a weapon he needs to win. Eisenhower does something brilliant. He issues a public reprimand. Formally, official record. Shows that Patton will be held accountable. But he doesn't remove him, doesn't destroy him, just humiliates him enough that the public pressure eases. Patton apologizes, genuinely, understands he crossed a line. For a while, he's careful, more controlled, still aggressive, but controlled. But by 1944, the war is different. Normandy is being planned. Patton is given command of 3rd Army. Secret assignment. He's not supposed to exist yet. Can't tell anyone. Can't appear in public. The Germans think he's in England, preparing to land in Pas-de-Calais. It's part of Operation Fortitude, the greatest deception operation in military history. And Patton is the bait. The Germans fear him more than any other American general. Patton in Pas-de-Calais means that's where the real invasion is coming. Keeps German panzers in the north, away from Normandy. But keeping Patton's secret is impossible. He's famous, recognizable, restless. He's going crazy not being in the fight. So Eisenhower does something unusual. He lets Patton give a speech. To troops, a morale speech. Nothing classified, nothing secret. Just Patton being Patton. The speech is leaked, deliberately leaked. Patton realizes what happened, understands Eisenhower is testing him, seeing if Patton can be trusted with real responsibility. Patton proves himself, delivers results without creating chaos. Third Army is ready, disciplined, professional, still Patton, but focused. D-Day comes. Patton is held back, won't be committed to Normandy until the beachhead is secure. It nearly kills him. He's itching to fight, writing in his diary about how he should be in charge of everything. But he waits. He controls it. And when Third Army finally lands in Normandy in late July 1944, he proves why Eisenhower kept him alive and ready. Patton does the impossible, breaks a stalemate at Saint-Olay, wheels south around the German army, creates the Falaise pocket, traps tens of thousands of German soldiers. The Germans have to retreat or be surrounded. He drives so fast that supply lines can't keep up. His soldiers are running on empty, out of fuel, out of ammunition, out of food. But Patton keeps pushing, doesn't stop, doesn't care about logistics, cares about pursuing the enemy. Eisenhower has to literally order him to slow down sometimes. George, you're outrunning your supplies. You'll get surrounded. Can't attack if you have no fuel. Patton hates it, thinks about it as interference, thinks Eisenhower is being timid. But he obeys, barely, with visible anger. But he obeys. By late 1944, Patton is the most successful general in the ETO, European Theater of Operations. His record is undeniable. Fastest advances, fewest casualties relative to ground gained, most German prisoners captured. He's not just winning, he's dominating. And he knows it, and he wants the world to know it. This is when the cracks start showing again. February 1945. Patton goes to Wales. Military ceremony. Some event honoring him or his army. He gives a speech. Impromptu remarks. Not prepared. Just Patton speaking from the heart. About his army. About their glory. About how they're the best soldiers in the world. Nothing wrong with that. But then he says something else. Something about how the soldiers have accomplished things that will be remembered for thousands of years. How they'll be remembered with great honor. How Britain and Russia have done well. But American soldiers, specifically as soldiers, there's something special. It sounds harmless. But it's not harmless in 1945. Because Britain is listening. Churchill is listening. The British press is listening. And they hear it as exactly what it is. Patton taking credit for the entire war effort, downplaying British contribution, downplaying Russian contribution. It's not diplomatic. It's not strategically wise. It's Patton being Patton. Thinking victory is about him, about his skill, about his aggression. British newspapers pick it up. Headlines. American general claims British contribution is secondary. American soldiers are superior. It's inflammatory. At a moment when the alliance is barely holding together, when Montgomery has just tried to grab control of American forces, when Churchill and Roosevelt are barely speaking about the future of Europe, the last thing Eisenhower needs is his aggressive general stepping on international relations with both feet. The cable reaches Eisenhower's desk. His chief of staff brings it to him. "Sir, you need to see this. Patton's been talking to the press in Wales." Eisenhower reads it. His jaw tightens. That's the only reaction anyone sees. But inside, there's something cold building. Something angry. But more than that, something strategic. Because Eisenhower is at the end of his patience. And because he knows something about George Patton that Patton doesn't know about himself. Patton thinks he's a lone wolf. Thinks he wins battles through brilliance and aggressive willpower. But Patton only wins because Eisenhower gives him the space to win, gives him the supplies, gives him the reinforcements when the front gets hot, gives him the support of the entire Allied machine. Take that away, and Patton doesn't win anything. Eisenhower calls Patton to his office. Doesn't say why. Doesn't warn him. Just summons him, like you'd summon a schoolboy who's been misbehaving. Patton shows up in his dress uniform, pearl-handled pistols on his belt, helmet with 3 stars painted on it. Immaculate, perfect, ready to be complimented. Instead, he finds Eisenhower sitting at his desk, not standing, not shaking his hand, just sitting, and the temperature in the room has dropped 40 degrees. George, sit down. Patton sits. What's on your mind, sir? Eisenhower doesn't answer immediately, just looks at him. The silence stretches. Seconds become a minute. Patton starts to get uncomfortable. Finally, Eisenhower speaks. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Do you know why you still have a command? Patton's face hardens. Respectfully, sir, because I'm one of your best generals. I've proven it in battle. Every operation I've been given, I've succeeded. I've captured more territory, more prisoners, more Euro. Eisenhower holds up his hand. Stop. Do you know why you're still here, George? It's not because you're brilliant. It's not because you're aggressive. It's not because you understand we're better than everyone else. It's because I decided you're worth saving. And because I haven't given up on you. Patton starts to protest. Eisenhower cuts him off. 3 times. 3 times I've had to clean up your mess. Sicily, that soldier, inappropriate comments about the future of Germany and what we should do to it. And now this, Wales, insulting our British allies, diminishing their contribution, at a moment when we need that alliance more than we've ever needed it. Sir, I was simply Eisenhower's voice becomes ice. You were simply being George Patton, always thinking about George Patton. Always making sure the world knows how brilliant George Patton is. George Patton is aggressive. George Patton gets results. George Patton is the greatest general who ever lived. That's what you think. But you're wrong about something fundamental. Eisenhower stands, walks around the desk, stands right in front of Patton. You think you win battles because you're a genius. You think your aggressive tactics and your fearlessness overcome German discipline and German weapons. You think you can outthink them, outfight them, outwill them, but you're missing something important, George. You win because I give you what you need to win. Patton's face is red now. He's insulted, but he's also curious. Eisenhower continues. Those tanks you drove across France? I allocated them to you instead of Montgomery. Those aircraft providing air support? I ordered them to Third Army. Those supplies constantly flowing to your front? I prioritize you. That artillery support? Mine. The reinforcements when you got pinched at Bastogne? Mine. Everything you have, every soldier under your command, every resource you've used to win, I gave you, because I believed you could handle it. He pauses. Let that sink in. Then he adds, but belief requires responsibility. Responsibility to the mission, not to yourself, not to your ego, not to your reputation, to the mission. And when you go in front of British officers and diminish British contribution, you're not just insulting them, you're undermining the entire alliance that makes your victories possible. Patton tries again. Sir, I wasn't trying to Euro. Eisenhower cuts him off with a gesture. Do you understand what would happen if I decided you weren't worth the trouble anymore? If I decided that Third Army could be commanded by someone who understands restraint? Someone who won't say things that embarrass me in front of Churchill? Someone who won't create international incidents? Patton finally gets it. The color drains from his face. You'd remove me from command. No, Eisenhower says quietly. You'd remove yourself. I would simply let you. I would issue a statement saying that you're being reassigned to prepare for the occupation of Germany. Quiet, professional, face-saving for you, probably, but you'd be gone, out of the fight, watching other generals take the credit for the final defeat of Germany. All those glorious battles you dream about, other generals would fight them. You'd be explaining to history why you gave up your command before the war ended. Patton's hands clench. That's not fair, sir. I've earned my position. You earn it every single day. Eisenhower says. Not once. Every day. The moment you stop earning it, it's gone. And right now, after Wales, you're spending down your account very quickly. Eisenhower walks back to his desk, sits down, and here's what's going to happen. You're going to issue a statement. Publicly, you're going to apologize to the British. Specifically, you're going to acknowledge their contribution to this war. You're going to make it clear that American success depends on Allied cooperation. You're going to make it so clear that no one can possibly misunderstand. Patton stands. Yes, sir. Eisenhower adds one more thing. And George, if there's a next time, there won't be a third chance. You'll be on a transport back to the States faster than you can say blood and guts. Understood? Completely understood, sir. Patton salutes. It's perfect, sharp, military, but his eyes are still angry, still pride, still the conviction that Eisenhower is wrong. Patton leaves the office. Within hours, he's on the radio, apologizes to the British, acknowledges their contribution, praises their courage and their sacrifice. It sounds genuine, but everyone who knows Patton knows it's forced. It's a man swallowing his pride because he has no choice, because Eisenhower has made it clear that the only alternative is removal. But something happens after that moment. Something shifts. Patton begins to understand something he didn't understand before, something about real power, about command, about what it actually means to lead. Real power isn't having the ability to do what you want. Real power is having others do what needs to be done. And Eisenhower has that. Patton doesn't. Patton has courage. Patton has aggression. Patton has the kind of operational brilliance that wins battles. But he doesn't have what Eisenhower has. He doesn't have the ability to make a general apologize on the radio, to remove him from command, to decide his fate in an instant, because Patton answers to someone. Eisenhower answers to the combined chiefs of staff, Roosevelt, Churchill, Congress. But Eisenhower's authority comes from something Patton doesn't fully grasp. It comes from competence, from the demonstrated ability to manage not just armies, but alliances, not just tactics, but strategy. For the last 3 months of the war, Patton is different, still aggressive, still brilliant, but somehow more controlled. He still drives Third Army hard, still takes ground, still defeats German forces, but he does it without the ego, without needing credit, without the need to announce to the world how brilliant he is. He's learned something. You can't actually control the world with will and aggression. You have to understand what makes people listen. And what makes people listen to a supreme commander isn't his willingness to use force. It's his willingness to be fair, to be honest, to put the mission above personalities. Eisenhower understands this instinctively. Patton learns it the hard way. May 8th, 1945. Germany surrenders. The war's over. Patton is still general, still has his command, still has his reputation. But something is different. He's not bitter about it. Doesn't write in his diary about how Eisenhower held him back or mistreated him. He seems to have accepted something, that it's possible to be great without needing everyone to know you're great. But the lessons don't stick. After the war, Patton is assigned to occupation duty in Germany. He begins making public statements again, inflammatory ones, about how the Germans aren't really that bad, how we should ally with Germany against Russia, how America should have invaded Russia after defeating Germany. These statements explode in the American press. Congress is outraged. The public is shocked. This is exactly what Eisenhower was trying to prevent. This is the pattern reasserting itself. Patton is removed from command in September 1945, sent back to the States, dies in a car accident in December 1945, never gets the chance to lead again, never gets to explain himself, never gets to revise his legacy. History remembers him as brilliant, dangerous, brilliant and dangerous, a man who was too much for any alliance to handle. And Eisenhower, he becomes president, not because he was the greatest military tactician, not because he won the most battles or captured the most territory, because he understood something that Patton never fully grasped. War isn't about individual brilliance. It's about making the system work. It's about managing personalities. It's about balancing aggression with diplomacy. It's about knowing when to push and when to pull back. That day in April 1945, in that office, Eisenhower taught Patton the most important lesson of all. That power isn't about what you can do. It's about what others allow you to do. And what others allow you to do depends entirely on your ability to make them trust you, to believe that you're putting the mission above yourself. Patton learned the lesson, but he couldn't quite internalize it, couldn't quite let go of the need for recognition, for credit, for the world to know how brilliant he was. That's why he's remembered as a genius who fell short. Brilliant, but not quite wise enough for the top job. Eisenhower was both. And that's why he won not just battles, but the broader game of leadership. That's why one retired as president. The other retired frustrated, dying in a car accident a few months later, still believing that if only Eisenhower hadn't held him back, he could have won the war faster. Think about that. Patton was maybe right. He probably could have won faster. But winning faster while destroying the alliance wouldn't have been winning at all. It would have been creating the conditions for the next war. That's what Eisenhower understood. And that's what Patton never quite figured out. Not in time. Not before it was too late.